avoid all non-essential social contact. It ought to bother us, the church, that we are designated that way. Not because it's not right to do what we can to save lives, to help the health services cope. This is not part of the debate, important as that is, about the rights and wrongs of lockdown policy. It's the fact that the label itself should bother us. The church, the people, that is, not the buildings, is the embassy of Christ's kingdom on earth. It is God's holy temple. It is the earthly branch of his house of prayer for all nations. As someone has put it, the church is the spiritual ER of the nation because, of course, Christ is the hope of all nations. That's why it should bother us to be designated non-essential social contact. It ought to bother us because maybe it's our fault. We shouldn't blame the authorities, we shouldn't blame the government or wider society for this designation. And in actual fact, the church doesn't exist for the applause or the approval of wider society anyway. But actually, maybe that's exactly the problem here. Maybe this is the evidence of the fruit of the fact that that is what we have done all too often. We've sought to reduce the friction between society's values and our own. We've smoothed off the sharper edges of what Christ gives us to say and how he tells us to live. We've kept to our lane in a secular world, and we've told ourselves that it is vital for our mission and for its success that we do so. If we look and sound like a religious club, maybe we shouldn't be surprised to be designated that sort of thing, an optional leisure activity like yoga or visiting a health spa or playing for a sports team. And it ought to bother us because maybe the world sees the church this way, because that's how we, as Christians, see it too. Especially the gathering of the church for public worship each Sunday. We see it all too often as something optional, as something subservient to my comfort, entertainment and preferences, like other consumer goods and services, like other leisure activities. Non-essential social contact. Don't get me wrong, there are lots of positive things happening around church and around churches at the moment. All across our nation, people are tuning into church broadcasts. Many of them are people who would not normally set foot in a church service. Maybe that's just about the practicalities of our circumstances, or maybe it's evidence of a growing spiritual hunger. I guess part of what I'm saying in this video and in the blog post below is that we need to be seeking the Lord, that we would have, as his people, a greater zeal for his name and for his house and for his worship, and a greater courage for living distinctively for Christ and speaking out courageously for Christ. And if we do that, then we will maybe emerge from this lockdown with something vital to say to people who are spiritually hungry, something essential.